The Rule of Transformation by JumpingjackFlash, Chapter 3. Who do you confide in when you rule the world? He smells like salt wind and crushed orchids. His eyes are an impossible true violet. Has to be magicked, pure vanity. But God, how bright. Answer me. The growl goes right down your spine and digs into your belly, fills you with lust and terror and defiance, compels you in a way that is definitely magic. I worked it out myself, you gasp, and if you can just leave it at that. How? Damn it. From some papers I found. Where did you find them? In the attic of a... You break off with a yelp as he shakes you. He's had enough of your dancing around. He'll get it out of you in the end. You give it up. The cancer had them before he was taken. I don't think he managed to decode him. It took me forever. I'm not even done myself, and I'm a lot smarter than he is. And he belongs to the Titan now, and he's loopy as a fucking fruit bat, so that I guess that's crisis averted for you, isn't it? He loosens his hand, and you fall into your chair, shaking. Who have you told? That's not a compulsion. You wonder why. When the villain asks that, the poor asshole who answers nobody turns up dead in the next scene. To your surprise, he chuckles. Cancer is loopy as a fucking fruit bat, ain't he? Titan screwed up with that one. I wouldn't have taken him. He hooks his toe under his fallen chair and rides it with a flick of his foot, then falls into it. His anger is gone, his aura of power no stronger than what you suppose is his natural emanation, which you're already getting used to, at least. Being in the same room with him doesn't make you want to hide under the furniture like it did yesterday. But you have to wonder if he's using magic to amp up the sex appeal, if he's heard that you might be vulnerable to that kind of bait. Because when he shoves his hand through his hair and lets his head roll back, stretching out his slender neck, it's a huge effort to think about anything but biting him. You feel stupid as a schoolboy, and that, in turn, makes you angry. What are you doing, Prince? You demand. I'm not going to work against the company or the rebels or the sufferer, not even if you start me out on unrelated tasks. You can't ease me into it. I wouldn't have taken you for an idealist. I'm not, but I keep my oath, and the sufferer is my friend. He lifts his head to give you a curious look. Is he really the reincarnated sufferer? How can you tell? You shrug. Fuck if I know. The rebels believe he is. That seems to get the job done. I know he's a good man. I know I won't help you fight him. Your company used to work for us. And we still would, if the orphaner hadn't turned on us. We're not the ones who broke our contract. We didn't have to be enemies, but we are. And that's not going to change just because you throw puzzles at me or... You break off, gesturing at the table, because you can't, finish that sentence with seduce me by sprawling around like a fucked out whore. He lifts an eyebrow. This? It's not a fucking bribe, soul. It's just food. Yeah, well, and now he's giving you nicknames? This is stupid. My point is, it doesn't matter. Not even a little bit. I won't work for you. Not even if there's something out there worse than us? You know what he's talking about. When the orphaner and his taken escaped the barrel where the original sufferer imprisoned them so long ago, they left an even greater evil still sleeping. The Condus, the mad queen who, once upon a time, nearly ruined the world. But if the prince thinks he can use that to get around you, he can think again. The Condus didn't write this code, you drawl. I'll ask again. What are you doing? Having a conversation, he says innocently. He pops a grape in his mouth and talks around it. Ain't often I get to just chat over dinner. Leastwise not with anyone halfway sane and smarter than a puddle of piss. Titan don't count. That asshole won't talk about anything but who he fucked last and who he plans to fuck next. That gets old in a real hurry, let me tell you. For a moment, your simmering anger flares up into true rage. Is he seriously treating this like a date? Is this some kind of Beauty and the Beast bullshit where he kidnapped you just to keep his bored ass company? You know you can't kill him with a fork, but it might be really satisfying to try. But there's an odd note of sincerity in the way he said all that. You can readily imagine how rarely he has the chance to just talk to someone. And maybe you hate yourself a little for thinking it, but the silly vignettes you wrote about the orphaner back when the Mage King was just a distant legend, all that dreamy drivel in which you imagined him being handsome and lonely and gazing at storms. The prince fits the role alarmingly well. The orphaner is a raw force of nature, a grasping and destructive power, utterly self-centered and immune to insecurity. The prince poses, he preens, he cares about what people think of him, even a prisoner like you. Surely you can use that, get him talking, maybe he'll let something slip. You don't have a lot of family dinners then, I guess, you prompt. He gives a bitter sneer. As far as my so-called father is concerned, I'm just a fucking magic item. You don't talk to me any more than I talk to my wand. And don't get me started on the Taken. They're all mad skunks. Mindfang seems pretty sane. Seems being the operative word here, Sol. And he's off like a racehorse, ranting about the orphaner's minions as if he's been waiting his whole life to get it off his chest. He talks for hours. All you have to do is prompt him a little whenever he starts to run down. A lot of it is a psychopath's banal self-pity, but you can sense glimmers of truth in it here and there. Whatever the orphaner that has that armors him against self-doubt, the prince doesn't have it, and the lack gnaws at him. He doesn't drop anything particularly important, but you do pick up some hints you might be able to work with later. He doesn't trust the orphaner, but he wishes he could. Nobody trusts the Titan, and none of the Taken trust their masters or each other, except that you get the impression the prince has a certain fondness for his own, Undine and Anvil in particular, which suggests their loyalty is more than just sorceress compulsion. Maybe they like their jobs. He tells you outright as a gift that the rebels did manage an orderly retreat yesterday, and neither side's losses were as heavy as expected. Basically, Karkat gave it up as a bad job right after you were nabbed, and Darkleer wasn't confident enough to give chase with Mindfang out of the picture. You're so relieved you want to laugh. You don't ask after your other comrades. You don't want to draw attention to them, but you visualize each of them alive and try to mean it. Joker, Karkat's self-appointed bodyguard and lunatic sidekick, made it if Karkat did. Hawkeye lived, you're certain. She's too crafty to die. And the Black Rose, well, you're not entirely sure she can die. Her sorcery is some pretty dark stuff, maybe as dark as the orphaners. Rabbit and Wolf made it for sure. They're a brother-sister team. They look out for each other the way you and Aradia used to. Wolf's just a sniper. She's not likely to piss off one of the Taken personally the way your sister did. You'd give Ripper good odds too. Karkat's careful not to waste a company physician on mere combat. She's probably still at her needlework, stitching up yesterday's casualties, eyes glassy with fatigue, short hair sticking up in sweaty spikes, determined not to rest while anyone needs her. Flash probably died. That asshole has no sense of self-preservation and he can't follow orders for shit. But you don't like him very much, no matter how crazy Hawkeye is about him, so you're not going to give himself an ulcer worrying about his fate. At last, when the table is thoroughly picked over and the prince is starting to sound hoarse, a messenger arrives to give him a paper that makes him sigh and gather himself. I'll give you the run of the ship once that message is decoded, but not before. I don't want you getting distracted. You nod. It's a reasonable bribe. He gets up to follow the messenger out, but hesitates at the door, closes it, and turns back to you. Thanks for listening, Saul. For all your deductions, you're still surprised at this straightforward gratitude. Any time? You answer awkwardly. He leaves you alone with the coded message and the remains of dinner. You finish off the grapes while you give the papers a preliminary looking over. This time yesterday you were sure you were going to be mind-raped and killed, or tortured, or turned into a monster. Now you're hardly afraid at all. Parquet surely ordered the codes changed as soon as you were captured. And the longer it takes for the prince to get the old codes out of you, the less chance someone will still be using them. Hawkeye can do most of your job. She's a better agent runner than you are. She just has a hard time with data handling. This might not be a complete disaster after all. This cipher looks like it might be vulnerable to a frequency analysis attack. You're seeing some repeating letter clusters that you're hoping aren't coincidence. Damn it, you need something to write on. The guards don't have to herd you back to your room this time. You hurry ahead, eager to get to that desk and get started. You have to ask for scratch paper and pins, which makes you impatient. What the hell did they think the desk was for? When the writing supplies they bring you include a penknife, you don't even try to stab anyone with it.